The Story of St. Nicholas by Mildred Luckhardt, Chapter 6. Nicholas Chooses Well. The years passed by. Although Nicholas was unable to go home, he and his uncle wrote long letters to each other. Uncle John wrote that the lovely wife of Thaddeus had died. Anya now went there frequently to help because all of the servants were gone. Nick was sorry that the little girls were without a mother, but he knew Anya would be good to them. Another letter brought more bad news. Carita's left foot was injured. She had to walk with a crutch. Thaddeus was poorer than ever and spent whatever he could for doctors to try to cure Carita. On reading this, Nicholas wrote at once to his uncle that he wanted to give Thaddeus some gold. "Nicholas, it is useless to offer Thaddeus part of your fortune," Uncle John replied. "Much as you want to help him, he will accept nothing." Nick was disappointed. There was a short note from Anya, too. As he unrolled it, Nick marveled at the way his uncle had been able to teach her to read and write. Few people could read and write, and certainly very few women. Her letter started Nick thinking. She said, just as Uncle John had, that there was no use in trying to give a present to Thaddeus. "But," she added, "someday you may find a way to help him without his knowing who receives the gift. Or at the right time, you may make a secret gift to his daughters. If you do, tell no one, not even me." Nick had little time, however, to ponder this problem, for every month there seemed to be more work at school. Nicholas enjoyed games and good times with his friends, and there were times when he played more than he should. But on the whole, he worked hard. So it was that one day Brother Simeon selected Nicholas and two other boys to go to Myra 2 days a week to help the bishop. The Bishop of Myra was in charge of the Myra Cathedral and of all nearby Christian churches. He did a great deal of good among the poor, and since he was old, he needed young helpers to visit poor families in the area and take them food and clothing. The work was hard. Never before had Nicholas realized how many poor and lonely people there were. Whatever he did seemed so very little when there was so much need in the world. But when he spoke of this to the bishop, the old man answered, "Each one of us must do our very best and trust in God as Jesus did. Who knows how many people are happier because of one kind-hearted deed? It is like lighting a candle in the dark. One candle brightens the night for many people, and some light more candles from it to carry shining to others." So Nicholas forgot about himself and how little he could do, and did his very best to brighten the lives of those people he could help. Often he wondered what he should do when he became a man, what work to choose. Slowly he came to realize that it must be something that would help other people. In time he decided to work for the church, helping God take care of people as his uncle and Brother Simeon and the bishop did. Both Simeon and the bishop were happy about Nicholas's decision. They began making plans. Brother Simeon said, "You will need more time to work at the cathedral, especially with poor children like you, and they will try to do what is right when you show them how." The bishop agreed, adding, "The donkey train goes to Padua today. You must visit your uncle and tell him of your plans. He has some plans too, which I've helped him to work out. A younger pastor will take the Padua church, and your uncle John will go to Egypt." "Egypt?" echoed Nicholas. "In Egypt, scholars are studying early Christian writings and helping them so that people hundreds of years from now will be able to read and understand about Jesus' way of life," the bishop explained. "Uncle John will be very happy helping to do that," Nicholas replied, pleased and proud of his uncle, as he hurried off to catch the donkey train to Padua. Marcus, who now drove the train, was just starting the lead donkey when Nicholas dashed up panting. Nick tripped over a sleeping dog and plunged into a fruit stall. Oranges, pomegranates, and apricots flew in all directions. The fruit vendor scolded, dogs yelped, donkeys brayed, children came running and scrambling, and everyone scrambled for fruit. Nicholas begged the vendor to forgive him. "I'm such a clumsy one," he admitted. "I always leap before I look. My feet will never learn to move quietly and carefully." He took several silver pieces from the leather purse in his belt and put them in the man's hand. "This will pay for the fruit. Let the children enjoy it. I cannot pay you for the confusion I caused." In a moment, everyone in the market was laughing good-naturedly at the awkward young man whose feet would not move quietly and carefully. Smiling and munching fruit, the children waved the donkey train on its way. Nicholas rode close to Marcus, and the two old friends exchanged news as they jogged along. Marcus said that Anya planned to live at the nobleman's house after Uncle John left Padua. She never stops worrying about dowries for his daughters when they grow up. What will they do? Such fine young women cannot marry without a dowry. Nicholas nodded in agreement. As he stroked his little donkey's ear, she remarked, 6 years have passed since I have seen Thaddeus's family. Perhaps I would not recognize them, and surely they have forgotten me. It is a fine family, Marcus said. If only some persons of great wealth could be found to give the daughters dowries when they reach marriageable age. Sometimes that happens, but you and I could never find such a person. He laughed and tapped the lead donkey's sides, and all the beasts trotted briskly. Nicholas laughed too. How could we ever find anyone with a fortune who wanted to give it away? And the day is too fair for us to be gloomy about other people's troubles. Let us sing as we ride. Through the morning sunlight they jogged, singing lilting songs together, and when they rested at noon, all the travelers shared their food and shared, too, stories and legends from the many lands they had seen. The tales from far and near continued as they rode on in the afternoon, but even though he listened eagerly, Nicholas kept watching for familiar sights. At last they drew near Padua. From a distance he could see his little home perched on the hillside beyond the town. There was the fig tree by the door and the olive trees beyond. He was too far away to see the flowers growing down the hillside to the shore, but he knew the grass was sprinkled with pink and purple, blue and yellow. It seemed like a long time before the donkey train finally reached the center of the busy town, but as soon as it did, Nicholas jumped off his donkey and, calling, "Goodbye," ran up the hill. Anya and Uncle John were surprised and delighted. Anya looked much the same to Nick, but Uncle John seemed much older. After supper, they sat outside and talked. When Nicholas told about his plans for his life work, Uncle John was happy. He said, "Nicky, the world is large. The sun and moon shine down on millions of people, and most of them want to live peacefully. But many need to learn how to get along happily together. Remind everyone you can, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I'm sure that you will spread peace and goodwill wherever you are." Uncle John stood up. "Nicky, come inside. I shall give you a lifelong treasure." Nick kept wondering what it could be as they walked into the lamplit house. Not gold or silver, surely, but what lifelong treasure? From a big chest, his uncle began taking rolls of books and handing them to Nick. "Here are some of the Christian scriptures, Nicky, that I've been copying for years. Letters from church leaders and stories of Jesus. These are books which our Christian leaders are planning to put together and preserve." He looked directly at his nephew. "Read them often and help others to understand the teaching so they may live good, useful, happy lives." Nicholas hardly knew what to say. He was so grateful for this gift that represented years of his uncle's life. At last he simply thanked his uncle and promised to use the writings wisely and guard them faithfully. Uncle John pointed out some of the writing. "There is the story of the Apostle Paul. It tells that as he was making his last voyage to Jerusalem, he sailed to Rhodes and then to Padua. Here in our seaport, he and his friends found a ship sailing the coast of Phoenicia, not many miles north of Jerusalem." Nicholas read the account with interest, and then he said, "Uncle John, I want to go to the Holy Land someday and see the little town of Bethlehem where Jesus was born." "Nick, I hope you can go. Bethlehem has not changed much since Jesus was born nearly 300 years ago. But his good news that God loves all people and wants to help them has traveled to many lands and changed many people and places for the better. Christian churches are in countless places." "But not all Christian churches are safe," Nicholas replied. "Brother Simeon says the emperor has tortured many Christians. We've heard stories about brave Christian martyrs who were persecuted and killed by earlier emperors, and Brother Simeon says that someday we may have to suffer if we are loyal to our faith." "That is true," Uncle John answered. "If persecution comes, we must be brave for God." "I will try to be brave and loyal," Nicholas promised. "Indeed." He went on to say, as he carefully gathered the writings together and rolled them in a soft sheepskin, "I hope and pray that in a time of danger I shall be brave enough to protect these words that show people the best way to live." He dreaded to think that soon the persecution of Christians might come to their province, but he knew it was possible. There was little time to talk during the next few days. Time was spent packing Uncle John's things and getting the house ready for the new pastor. Nicholas borrowed a handcart and filled it with the belongings Uncle John was taking to Egypt. He was not taking much, just a few clothes, writing tools, and the chest with the writings he had not given to Nicholas. Neighbors wanted to help with the work, but Anya would not let them. "You'll only get underfoot," she told them, but they understood that she wanted to be alone with Nicholas and Uncle John as they cleared out their old home. When the three of them started down to the wharf to see Uncle John off, people came from all sides and walked along silently, trying to let their old pastor know how much they would miss him. Nicholas was sad, for he and his uncle might never see each other again. He tried to smile as he pushed the cart, bumping downhill over the rocky road. He did not want to sadden Uncle John and Anya. Nick stowed the things in the small boat that would carry Uncle John to the large ship he was to sail away in. Uncle John got in, greeted the seaman who would row him out, and then turned to wave farewell to Nicholas and Anya. As they stood on the wharf waving farewell, the small boat pulled away. Anya's tears splashed down her cheeks. Nicholas felt a salty taste on his lips too. They did not talk much as they returned to the empty house.